Good evening, Sensei Mui here. And last week we talked about generosity. And for a moment I would like you to think about generosity. It's the first perfection. The perfections begin with generosity, and it manifests both inwardly and outwardly. Generosity comes in three forms: a material form, protection, and in the form of Dhamma, living the teachings of nonviolence. So, how does generosity manifest in your life? Think about that for just a few seconds before we continue. Generosity has many, many forms. It's both an attitude as well as an action. And it turns the focus away from us and puts it on others, which is usually a pretty nice thing to do. This is the third class in the 10 Perfections with yours truly. And I added a really nice picture to the slide so people might be entertained by it. It's a beautiful sunset. And that individual down there is kind of important. This guy right here, looking at the sunset. He's known as the Bodhisattva, great endurance. And he's looking at the sunset because he follows the teachings of the Pure Land community. And he has great endurance, which is one of the perfections that we'll talk about later on in the series. These are the 10 perfections. We talked about dana, which is generosity, and today we'll be talking about sila, or shila, depending on whether you're using Sanskrit or Pali. Shila means virtue, morality, and proper conduct. And it has that terrible word attached to it that most people are very determined to avoid, and that is discipline. But it's not as hard as it looks. Sila, discipline, is moral conduct. It's the cornerstone upon which the entire Eightfold Noble Path is built. The practice of sila is defined by three factors in the Eightfold Path, and that is right speech, right action, and right livelihood. And sila is a class of discipline. In lay people in Buddhism take the 5 precepts. Many Mahayana monks take the 8 precepts of the Anagarika, a left home one. It can come in the form of 10 vows for the novice monk, and it can come in the form of 227 vows for the full Theravadan monk, and the Tibetan monks as well. Or it can come in the form of more than 250 vows if you happen to be one of those die-hard gung-ho bodhisattva types. It manifests as these outer vows where we promise to avoid doing things, and inner vows, which are the mental discipline that Buddhism is so well known for. The outer vows are very easy to do because there's only 5 of them. The inner vows a little more difficult. Now, this all has to do with something called abhimsa, or ahimsa for short. It's not a technical term. It is a permeating foundation for the code of conduct. It goes to the very heart of how we live our lives, both at home and in the community. It manifests both as absolutes, where we say we're not going to do certain things, but quite often do, and it's also relative. For example, I have the example down here of eating meat and animal products. Technically, meat is different from a living animal. The person that buys meat at a grocery store usually doesn't have anything to do with the killing of that animal. But on the other hand, knowing how industrialized animal farms work these days, the cruelty, the abuse of the animals, this raises a moral question of should one support that kind of industry? Is it better to eat a happy range cow or a suffering farm cow? These are questions that we have to ask ourselves when we're practicing sila, and they can be very difficult. On the surface, anyone can live within the guidelines of the sila. It's not always convenient or easy, but it is possible. What the discipline does, these precepts, they give clear guidance. There's no room for waffling, to coin an old political term, and there's no room for less than an honest realization and rationalization for what we do. Now, what these provide for the community are unlimited safety. When we take these vows, we guarantee that we're not going to harm the life of anyone, not directly and hopefully not indirectly. We guarantee the safety of everyone's possessions. We also give safety to the sexuality of others, where criticism for what used to be thought of as differences, deviations from a norm, which are quite normal in the animal kingdom, including us, where we respect and honor one's orientation. We respect and honor one's questioning. We respect and honor the word no. So we guarantee unlimited truthfulness, or at least we try. And we try to be mindful in all our communications. Now, this isn't always possible. Unlimited truthfulness, well, sometimes we want to protect ourselves from criticism, from blame, and we may be less than truthful at those times. It's always a wise idea to come clean immediately, because eventually we will get caught. In a Charlie Chan movie from 1940, with Bela Lugosi in it, and he was not a bad guy in this movie. Anyway, Charlie Chan was asked if he used a lie detector. And he says, "What is a lie detector?" And the guy says, "A lie detector is something that detects if you're lying or not." And he says, "Oh, I have one of those. I'm married." Well, if you've got a wife or a spouse, you will definitely get caught if you're untruthful. Mindfulness in communication is also very difficult. I mean, I really do wish I had $1 for every time I had a slip of the tongue, or I said something which was inappropriate. Not inappropriate to me, but the listener sure thought so. So the Buddha says that these 5 precepts are 5 gifts, 5 great gifts, not just gifts, but great ones. They're original, they're long-standing, they're traditional, they're ancient, they're unadulterated from the beginning. There's no corruption in these 5. They are not open to suspicion, will never be open to suspicion, and are unfaulted by knowledgeable contemplatives and Brahmins. That means nobody can find fault with them. And they're just generally a good idea. The 5 precepts, the panca-sila. I undertake the precept to refrain from destroying living creatures. Slip of the tongue there, just like I said. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given. I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct, and we call that abusive relationships now. I undertake the precept, to refrain from incorrect speech, deliberately telling a falsehood. I undertake the precept to refrain from intoxicating drinks and drugs which lead to carelessness. Now, the way these are written in the Pali, it says, I undertake the precept to avoid from destroying living things. It's an avoidance. We know we're not perfect. This is a practice, just like any other practice, meditation, chanting, reading the sutras and suttas. We're not expected to be perfect as we undertake these. It's very difficult to refrain from destroying living creatures all the time. We very casually swat a gnat or a mosquito. We are very casual about where we step, not often watching where we're going. But one can live their whole lives without killing. They can live their whole lives without taking anything which is not freely given. They can live their whole life refraining from sexual misconduct or getting involved in an abusive relationship. They can live their whole life without telling a falsehood. They can live their whole life in complete sobriety. It's probably a very boring life, but they can live their whole life that way. It's not difficult. On the other hand, what does it mean to destroy a living creature? How far do we take that? Is that just the physical action, or is that also the mental action? Undertake the precept from taking what is not given. Well, if I'm gossiping about somebody, I'm destroying their life, I'm taking their good name from them, I'm definitely being abusive, it's not correct speech, and I am intoxicated with the nonsense that is going on in my own head. And these, when done on a mental level, become quite difficult. How often do we lie to ourselves about ourselves or about other things? It's not easy to avoid lying to ourselves. Now, the sila is also meant to be psychologically healing. They constitute the first step in the Buddhist path. There is a Western tendency to dismiss the 5 precepts as some Sunday school religious morality lesson, some rule that's bound to an ancient culture, and it doesn't really apply in modern society. Like Madison Avenue advertising is obviously not true. It's meant to deceive us. I mean, which one of us hasn't heard about our bad breath? Which one of us hasn't heard about how desperately we need supplemental insurance of some kind? Or if we're over 55, we really ought to join some organization for older people so we can buy insurance from them. we're actually quite capable of buying our own insurance, but we're told we're not. These attitudes miss the point of what the Buddha actually intended. Yes, they are a course of therapy for a wounded mind, and we're all wounded in some way. It is a cure for the two ailments that underlie low self-esteem: regret and denial. There's a lot of stuff in my life that I regret, that I wish I had not done, but I'd be a fool to deny that I had not done some of these things. Well, actually, I probably did all of these things, and so it's hard to admit that we were fools in our past. It's hard to admit that we've made mistakes, errors in judgment. It's hard to admit that there are some things in our lives which we just wish weren't there. The problem is the way karma works. Once something is experienced, it stays experienced. It never goes away. Somewhere in the mind, it lingers, and it drives us forward. When our actions don't measure up to standards of behavior that we ourselves would like to live, we experience cognitive dissonance. That's the idea that things ought to be a certain way, and then one day we find out they're not. I might think of myself as a great Buddhist teacher and a great Buddhist practitioner, and then I'll slip and I'll fall, and I'll use harsh speech, or I'll think something which is really not too admirable, especially when that bozo cut me off in my turn lane this morning. Thought a lot of terrible things about this person. That happens. We are not actually responsible for our reactions. That's a function of karma. But we are responsible for what we do. How I react is one thing. That's a knee-jerk karmic thing that happens to me. How I respond to something shows skill. The word responsible doesn't mean that I'm to blame for anything. It merely means that I was able to respond. Response-able. Then we also regret our actions. And then we engage in two kinds of denial. One being denying that our actions did in fact happen, and the other is denying that the standards of measurement are really valid. When I was a young kid, I and my friend, I think I told this story last week, we stole some cookies. And I immediately went into denial when I was asked about it. I wasn't even at the house when the cookies were eating. I said after I was wiping off cookie crumbs from my face. Anger is the result of kamma. If we scrutinize the exact nature of our life and what's happening in reality, our anger might subside and vanish right then and there. Remember, there are three levels of reality. There's the cognitive reality that is made up of conditions and causes, and I'll fabricate this reality. I'll abstract out of the reality. I'll say, well, it happened this way, and such happened, and I'll forget all the other stuff that happened. I won't even bring it up. I'll deny that this other stuff happened. It's called avijja, not seeing. I don't remember. I don't want to remember. When I got out of the car, when I pulled up here to the building, I don't remember what the breeze felt like. It wasn't pertinent. It wasn't important. All I could remember was I needed to get inside the building and up here. So there were things I didn't see, things I didn't check. This is conditioned reality. It's not entirely wrong, but it's not entirely correct either. And then there is the reality of things just as they are, without our adding to it, without adding judgments, without adding embellishments, without taking away from it, just experiencing things as they are. This is mindfulness. This is appropriate attention. And this is a much better way of going through life. In the old Theravadan chronicles and commentaries, they referred to this as the higher truth. And then the other reality is that of transcendence. But that isn't really applicable where we're here now. Of course, the ultimate goal, they say, of practicing these 10 paramitas is to become a Buddha, to reach Buddhahood in and of itself. In reality, most people don't practice the 10 perfections to become a Buddha. They practice the 10 perfections because they want to live in a more peaceful, more rational, more sane community, and they realize this starts with them. If we suffer a harm or loss as a result of our previous kamma, or excuse me, I misread my own note. We suffer harm or loss as a result of our previous kamma. Things catch up to us. If others are angry with us, they could not harm us if there were no latent force of past unwholesome kamma committed by us, which took advantage of this opportunity to arouse our adversary. What does that mean? That means that we're actually creating the person that's yelling at us, that's angry with us. Now, their anger really doesn't have anything to do with us. It's all about them. We just happen to be in the way. But we're responding to it and reacting to it in such a way that is conditioned by our kamma. I'm the one responsible for this harm or loss, not the person that's angry at me. You say it's a boss who decides to fire me. Yeah, sure. I lost my job. But on the other hand, how deeply that pains me is all my choice. If I should get angry back at them and do any harm to them, I'm going to accumulate much more unwholesome karma, which would bring me correspondingly unwholesome results. We get punished by our own actions. We get punished by our own thoughts. If I do something wrong, even if I think it's for the benefit of my employer, for instance, then I'm doing that because my kamma drives me to do that. It drives me to ignore the desires and wishes of my employer. They have every reason in the world to get mad at me and start yelling at me. And this, if the others were angry with us, they could not harm us, were no latent force of past unwholesome kamma committed. I had conditioned myself to get myself into trouble with my boss. How many married people know that feeling? Now we have to ask ourselves, when this anger arises, and you're probably asking yourself, what does this have to do with sila? It has to do with sila because we're lying to ourselves. We're harming ourselves. When we get angry, we are harming others. We're taking something away from them. We're lying about them. And we're intoxicated with our own ideas and fantasies. To break one is to break them all. Can't help it. Because all things are momentary. Both body and mind are momentary. They're constantly changing. We don't watch the changes in our body moment to moment like one would in meditation. The thoughts in the body which wrong us, which we perceive had harmed us, really don't exist after the fact, because they too are changing. Their thoughts are changing. Our thoughts are changing. We're not walking on solid ground here. We're walking on quicksand. What I call the same person now are the thoughts and physical parts which are different from the earlier ones that I had perceived to harm me, although belonging to the same psychophysical process. That is a lot of words. What that is saying, or trying to get across, is that being a human being is a process. It's an event. It is constantly going on. It is constantly morphing into something else. The thoughts that we have are constantly changing. If you're a meditator, you'll notice this immediately. The thought I had 5 minutes ago is different than the thought I'm having right now. My body movements are different. There are cells living and dying, molecules which are spreading out into space and others coalescing. And every breath I take brings a new kind of material into my body. The food that I'm digesting is changing me. The physical body that I have now is not the same physical body that I had 10 minutes ago. It's related to it. It grew out of it. It changed from it. But it's not quite the same. It's not all that different either. It's a constant change. The thoughts that I have are constantly changing. One thought morphs into another thought. So if a person is I feel somebody has harmed me, first of all, that's because I have perceived a loss of some kind, even if it's the opportunity to have something. It's still a loss. I perceive a loss, and then I get angry at them. But by the time I get angry, the actions that were done to me are already in the past. That person has changed. That physical and mental process has already altered into something else. So I'm actually getting angry at an imaginary person that just happens to look like the object of my anger. We can't change the past, and by the time we notice that something has happened, it's already in the past. If I scratch an itch here on my head, by the time I recognize that first tingling of an itch, it's already past tense. By the time I see this camera in front of me, it's already in the past. By the time I hear even the sound of my own voice, a nanosecond, but time has passed. We're always living in the past tense. Very interesting theory. Very interesting truth. Mass death, my homage to a former president. One thought plus one mass of physical parts equals something that did me wrong. Vanishing there and then, and giving way to another succession of thoughts and material parts which appeared and then vanished. Now I have to ask myself, with what am I angry? I am angry with something that has vanished and disappeared. They are thoughts and physical parts. Or I might be angry with thoughts and material parts which are not doing me any harm now in the present. Should I get angry with the one that is now innocent of doing me harm? Or should I be angry with the one that disappeared? These are my choices. Either way, when I think about it, I'm going to feel like a fool. Because I'm either angry with somebody that really hasn't done me any wrong, or I'm angry with somebody that's not there. Usually we give treatment to people that are angry at imaginary beings. Now, how this hatred is stilled is very, very important to the Sila, this discipline of moral conduct. He abused me. He beat me. He defeated me. He robbed me of my property. Whosoever harbors such thoughts will never be able to still their enmity. Never, indeed, is hatred stilled by hatred. It will only be stilled by non-hatred. This is the eternal law. It's from the Dhammapada. Probably one of the most quoted books in all of Buddhism. As long as I am holding this grudge, holding on to this idea that I've been abused, beaten up, defeated, robbed, not liked, stabbed in the back, talked about behind my back. As long as I'm holding on to these ideas, I am stressed. I am going to make my own life miserable. I am creating hatred. Hatred is never stilled, never calmed by adding more hatred to it, any more than a fire is put out by pouring gasoline on it. Only when the fuel is taken away does the hatred go away. Now, how are the 5 precepts a gift to the community? Let's reflect on this for a moment. I undertake the precept to refrain from destroying living creatures. How does that benefit the community? Why would the Buddha call that a gift? I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given. Why would that be a gift? I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct or abusive relationships. Now, how could that possibly benefit the community? I undertake the precept to refrain from incorrect speech. Funny, I would screw up on that one. Must be something Freudian in that. And I undertake the precept to refrain from intoxicating drinks and drugs which lead to carelessness. It's leading to carelessness, which is important there. How could these 5 things be called a gift to the community? Please ruminate over that. Now remember, Sila, virtue or moral conduct, is the cornerstone upon which the entire Eightfold Path is built. The practice of Sila is defined by the middle 3 factors of the Eightfold Path: right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Right speech is in bold there because that's what we're going to talk about next. And what is right speech? The Buddha asks, abstaining from lying, from divisive speech, and from abusive speech, from idle chatter. This is called right speech. The idle chatter part we tend to think of as being harmless. And the abusive speech we think of being maybe politically incorrect. Divisive speech, well, that's normal. In our society, it's normal. Just listen to Congress. Harsh speech is an act of violence. When we speak harshly to another, we are violating their peace, their serenity, their freedom from violence. Do not speak harshly to anyone. Those who are harshly spoken to might retaliate against you. Angry words hurt others' feelings. Even blows may overtake you in return. Again, from the Dhammapada. I have seen in my lifetime many altercations, sometimes violent, with fists flying, rocks being thrown. Once saw a guy stabbed in the chest with a pair of scissors for speaking harshly to his wife. And harsh speech is an act of violence. It promotes to violence. You remember the old term fighting words? And the Supreme Court of the United States has agreed that there are certain words that justify violent redress. I was kind of surprised they agreed to that, but this is about 4 years ago. The Supreme Court said there are certain words which are legitimately fighting words. And you have the right to retaliate against someone that uses them. I used to think that the 5 precepts were just a very good idea. That it was probably a good idea not to harm another person. It was probably a good idea not to steal. It was probably a good idea not to mess around with my best friend's girlfriend. It was probably a good idea to be honest. It was probably a good idea not to drink and drive. I never really stopped to think until a few years after I took my precepts that there are other values to them. That if I took them to their logical conclusion, I would have to start thinking in a whole different way. I would have to start being mindful of the thoughts that popped into my head. The precepts look so easy, and yet on a deeper level, they're very difficult. I have an example of that. When I was a young monk in Thailand, I was studying under Ajahn Chah, and there's a very good friend of mine at that time. I doubt he remembers me. That was like 40 years ago. His name is Ajahn Brahm today, and he lives in Australia. And he tells the story that, a new meditation hall was built. And in order to build a new meditation hall, they had to dig out all this dirt. And all this dirt was put in a pile next to the new meditation hall. Well, the new meditation hall was gorgeous. It was beautiful. It was all in neat wood and everything. And Ajahn Chah came out and said, you know what? I don't like this dirt here. It looks terrible. Why don't you guys put it over there somewhere? Somewhere over there. And so we all said, now, that's cool. I suppose we could do that. So we got wheelbarrows and shovels, and Ajahn Brahm was pushing a wheelbarrow. And we were all filled with enthusiasm and love for our teacher, and we were all there to become enlightened. So we put the dirt in the wheelbarrows and we moved the dirt where he wanted it, and we dumped it out and we made it look real nice. A little grassy knoll was going to be there. We're going to let the grass grow back up on the pile of dirt, and it was just oh, so happy. Anyway, Ajahn Chah had to go to another monastery for a 3-day trip. He was going to be gone 3 days. Well, not 10 minutes after he had left, and we were like all ready to go take a bath and wash the dirt off of us, the assistant abbot comes out and says, you know what, I think Ajahn Chah made a mistake. I think the dirt would be better over there. Go ahead and move it. So, okay, we're still filled with hope. We're still filled with enthusiasm. We wanted to be good monks, so we filled the wheelbarrow up again. We moved all this dirt. It took us 3 days to move the dirt the first time. It took us 3 days to move the dirt the second time. Got it all the way over there. Now we were tired. We were all anxious to go to bed. We did not come here to move dirt. We came here to meditate and become wise. We didn't want to do physical work. Well, Ajahn Chah came back. Morning of the 4th day, just as we were getting up to go wash so we could go on our rounds, and he comes out and he said, what's the matter with you guys? I told you to put the dirt over there. Why is it over there? Move it back. Okay, we were a little less enthusiastic now. A little bit of our faith was still left, but, we were wondering, these guys are supposed to be fully enlightened. Our hots, what's the matter with them? They don't even know where to put this dirt. So we moved the dirt back. Took us 3 days again of moving the dirt around. Anyway, Brahm is moving the dirt around, and he's cussing up a storm under his breath. And one of the older monks walks up to him and asks him, what's the matter, Brahm? And he says, and he just flies. He just goes, these fools are supposed to be enlightened. It makes me doubt the entire process. I don't understand why they can't make up their mind where they want this dirt. I just don't get it. And he goes on and on and on and on and on. Then suddenly the old monk raises his hand and says, Brahm, moving the wheelbarrow is easy. Thinking about moving the wheelbarrow is very difficult. Brahm looked at it and went, oh. Thought about it for a second and discovered that the old monk was right. It is a lot easier to push a wheelbarrow than to think about pushing a wheelbarrow. Because when we think about these things, we start adding to it. We start adding pain, anger, lack of faith, judgment. We start adding all this stuff, and suddenly we're suffering. Whereas if we don't add all that stuff and exist on that level of as it is, without embellishing it, life becomes a lot easier. It was Brahm's abusive speech, his self-talk, which caused him harm and suffering. It's the stories we tell ourselves that bring us suffering. One of the reasons I really enjoy Pure Land Buddhism, it recognizes that the lives that we perceive that we have is a delusion. We're deluding ourselves. Every time we have a moment of pain, every time we have a moment of suffering, every time we have a moment of mistrust, of these stories that we tell ourselves, these are all delusions. They use the 10 perfections to create a better delusion. And if you create a better delusion and you're finding out that after a while that's not working for you, you just create another delusion. That's even better. And as you create these levels of delusion, look where my hand's going. It's going up. You get wiser and wiser, have higher and higher realizations. It's still a delusion, but it's a happier delusion. And you've learned a lot from it. Monks, a statement endowed with 5 factors is well spoken, not ill spoken. It is blameless and unfaulted by knowledgeable people. Which 5? It is spoken at the right time, in truth, affectionately, beneficially, and with a mind of goodwill. That's all 5 of them. These things are blameless. You can't congratulate a person for winning the lottery before they've won it. That comes afterwards. In the movie Desperado, Antonio Banderas makes a prayer, something like, forgive me for what I'm about to do. If he was really serious about being forgiven for what he was about to do, he wouldn't do it. If you're going to pray, pray at the right time. Don't pray at some time for something you're going to do when you could have avoided it. It has to be spoken in truth. Even compliments can be harmful lies. If you tell someone they look good in a coat that makes them look 20 pounds heavier than they really are, and they're worried about their weight anyway, the compliment is not beneficial. It's like you see these movies where guys are getting shot or stabbed or falling off a cliff or something, and somebody runs up to them and holds them and says, "It's going to be okay, it's going to be okay," and then the guy dies. That's not truth, and it's not very helpful to the person that's injured. It has to be spoken affectionately. Affectionately in this case doesn't mean, with love or anything like that, or romantically. It means with goodwill, like you're a friend. It has to be spoken beneficially. Something that will help another. I just love all these people that give me constructive criticism without using an affectionate tone of voice. It's like, "You're not looking in the camera enough. What's the matter with you?" Well, that's beneficial, but it's not spoken affectionately. So, give me a break. Say it nicely so I can understand, so I can hear it, and not automatically rebel against it. Constructive criticism is great if said in the right tone of voice. When we say it as if it were a criticism, just a criticism and not even constructive at that, and we say it harshly, ill feelings arise, rebellion arises, passive aggression arises. Interesting turn of phrase, passive aggression. Aggression is still aggression, whether it's passive or active. And it has to be spoken with a mind of goodwill. A lot of people have a mind of goodwill and just can't say the right words at the right time in the right tone of voice. And this affects us. How we say things is as meaningful as what it is we say. Now, there's a danger to lying. And the first time I read this, I had to look at it and question it. And I questioned it a lot over the past few years, and I can see where the Buddha is coming from. For the person who transgresses in one thing, I tell you, there is no evil deed that is not to be done. Which one thing? This telling a deliberate lie. The person who lies, who transgress in this one thing, transcending concern for the world beyond, there is no evil he might not do. If one is willing to lie, then they're willing to do everything else imaginable. Why is that? This thing here, lying, that word, is about deception. If I'm willing to deceive you through words, I'm probably willing to deceive you through action as well. And that is a very dangerous and scary thing. The admirable friend, the Kaliyamitta. I have a friend that just named his daughter Kaliyamitta. Come to think of it. What is meant by an admirable friendship? There is a case where a layperson, in whatever town or village he may dwell, spends time with householders or householders' sons. That means like working class people. Young or old, who are advanced in virtue. He talks with them, engages them in discussion. He emulates consummate conviction in the principle of kamma. He really believes actions have consequences. In those who are consummate in conviction, consummate virtue, in those who are consummate in virtue, consummate generosity, in those who are consummate in generosity, and consummate discernment in those who are consummate in discernment. This is called an admirable friendship. People who have like minds, people who are virtuous, disciplined both outwardly and inwardly, have a strong faith in kamma, cause and effect, who are generous, who are wise, being able to discern what is good, what is bad, what is beneficial, what is not so beneficial. People like this are admirable friends. One day, Ananda, the Buddha's personal assistant and cousin, said, you know, there's a lot to be said about this admirable friend. I think that's a big part of the practice. And the Buddha responded saying, being with admirable friends is the whole practice. Because that admirable friend knows the path and they will keep us straight on it. Okay, now that we've gone through the third class here, and we've talked about the background to the 10 perfections, and we talked about generosity, and now we're talking about sila. Is it any wonder that in Asia this course takes a whole year? We're just scratching the surface. Okay, here's a reflection for you. Are you an admirable friend? Do you have admirable friends? How can you be a better friend? These are some things that you might think about as you go through life, or at least go to bed tonight. Are you such an admirable friend? Can you be better? And do you have admirable friends? What will drain us of virtue? 4 things will drain us of virtue. And you see they're all like highlighted in bold. Being debauched in sex. Okay. Being debauched in drink. Being debauched in gambling. And having evil people as friends, associates, and companions. This is that old birds of a feather sort of a thing. We are so influenced by our friends, it is amazing. It truly, truly is. After a while, we start talking like them. We start dressing like them. We start looking like them. We start liking the same things they like. We even start behaving like them. It's like almost like being married and growing old together, where the husband and wife start looking like each other as they go on, and then they get a dog that looks like them too. Yeah, it's just amazing how people do that. Having evil friends as associates, that's amazing. I can understand why, because they're fun. They're not practicing the 5 precepts. It's boring to be virtuous. It doesn't get you anywhere. It won't get you into clubs. It won't get you dates. It won't get you nice clothes. It won't get the respect from other hip people, because we all want to be hip. We all want to be young and hip and be all that. Somehow we've forgotten how to be human beings. We become discriminatory with our compassion and our passion. As many people died in the Ukraine over the past 3 weeks as died in the Gaza Strip. What's the news talking about? The Gaza Strip. Who cares about a bunch of Ukrainians? We don't talk much about that. Or the 150,000 people that died in Syria during their 3 years of civil war. We don't want to talk about that either, because we're not on very good friendly terms with them. Or 60,000 kids at the border. We're refugees, and we're calling them illegal immigrants. We're very selective with our compassion. We're very selective with what we feel strongly about. The same people that are pro-life want a gun so they can take it. It's very confusing to somebody that's not part of that crowd. But I'll tell you what, all those people and associates that have a like mind do understand. They dress alike. They look alike. They have the same passions. And they're very selective with whom they're compassionate. If you're pro-life, you should be anti-war. If you're pro-life, you should be anti-death penalty. If you're pro-life, you should be pro-social safety net. It just makes sense. Otherwise, we fall into this trap of cognitive dissonance. I am pro-something to a certain extent. And to that certain extent, I will be passionate. Gambling. Corrupted in gambling, or corrupted by gambling, I guess could be another way of putting it. Taking chances. Staking things that are important and necessary to life on things that make it possible for you to lose what's important. If you noticed, gambling, drink, friends, and sex are all addictions. People who are corrupted by their addictions, and he names the 4 major ones here, will drain us of our virtue. It'll drain us of our strength. Virtue in English actually has an etymology meaning strength rather than discipline. It's like Samson getting his hair cut. He was corrupted by his infatuation. Therefore, he got his hair cut. We very often become corrupted by our desires, sensual, intellectual, the need to be needed, the need to be liked, the need to have a relationship, because I don't feel whole without somebody around me telling me how great I am. That will drain you very, very quickly. Right action is the fourth of the 8 paths of the factors of the Noble Eightfold Path and belongs to the virtue division of the path. What is right action? The Buddha asks, and he answers. It was a rhetorical question. Abstaining from taking life, abstaining from stealing, abstaining from unchastity. This is called right action. Its relations to other factors on the path. Right action is preceded by right view. If we had right view, we wouldn't need the 5 precepts to tell us what is right and what is wrong. One discerns wrong action as wrong action, right action as right action. This is one's right view. And what is wrong action? Killing, taking what is not given, illicit sex, this is wrong action. And when we think we can get away with it, that's wrong view. One tries to abandon wrong action and to enter into right action. This is one's right effort. One of the Eightfold Path again. One is mindful, one of the Eightfold Path, to abandon wrong action and to enter and remain in right action. This is one's right mindfulness. Thus, these 3 qualities, right view, right effort, right mindfulness, run a circle around right action. If we have the right view, if we place the right amount of effort into what we're doing and have right mindfulness, pay appropriate attention to what it is we're doing, what it is we're saying, what it is we're thinking, then the rest is easy. Thing is, we probably don't pay a whole lot of attention to what we're thinking until it gets to the ridiculous, and then we start laughing at ourselves. Wrong view is the idea that actions do not have consequences. That is wrong view. We have to remember that whatever we think, whatever we say, whatever we do, all has a consequence. The decisions we make will affect us for years to come. Whatever we do right now affects everything. There's a saying in Tendai Buddhism. 3,000 realms exist in one thought moment. And that's an expression of the eternal now idea. We've streamlined that recently in a book called The Eternal Now. Actually, the expression goes back at least 1,200 years, probably 1,800. The idea is that in this very moment of existence, all my past, as a matter of fact, all of the past of the entire universe is converging on this moment. What happens in this moment affects everything into the future. It will have an everlasting effect. Nothing is insignificant because now it's thrown into the mix of a conditioned reality. Past and future meet right here. This is the matrix, at least for that. So the third part, right livelihood. Right livelihood is the fifth of the 8 path factors in the Noble Eightfold Path, and it belongs to the virtue division of the path. What is right livelihood? Another rhetorical question. The Buddha was always asking rhetorical questions. Like we weren't going to ask them, right? There is the cause, or there is the case where a disciple of the noble ones, having abandoned dishonest livelihood, keeps his life going with right livelihood. This is called right livelihood. In other words, you don't do anything dishonest. But it also means you don't deal in weapons. You don't deal in poisons. You don't deal in intoxicants. Wow, how anti-American is that? There's a liquor store in every corner. In Texas, there's a liquor store and a gun shop on every corner, usually across the street from a church. You go to church in the morning, buy your 6-pack, and you get a free gun. Okay, wrong livelihood for lay followers. This is great. This is great. This means I'm looking at this list and I'm realizing there's a lot here. A lay follower should not have a business in weapons, because weapons in the wrong hands, and that could be anybody, will kill people and other living things. What separates the Dalai Lama from Adolf Hitler? Circumstances. That's all. Gandhi from Jeffrey Dahmer. Circumstances. That's all. We all have the potential to be humanity's worst nightmare. We all have the potential to be a saint. What keeps us from going either way is simply a matter of circumstances. Business in human beings is something a lay person should not get involved with. What does that mean? Like human trafficking? In the Buddha's day, yeah. Today, we can also call that pornography. We can call that making claims to be a charity that helps children but really doesn't. We can call that living off of people's misery by selling them insurance or some product they really don't need. That's trafficking in human beings. Because now we're trafficking in their emotions, in their addictions, in their desires, in their hopes. Shouldn't be doing that. Business in meat. A lay Buddhist should not be selling meat products. They should not be a butcher. Except for bacon, and we all know that grows on bushes somewhere. That's the only exception I make. Business in intoxicants. Well, the standard when we think about intoxicants, a lay Buddhist shouldn't be working in a liquor store. Yeah, probably not. A lay Buddhist shouldn't probably be selling drugs. Probably not a good idea. But now that marijuana is becoming legal and booze has been legal since the repeal of prohibition, we say, well, there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, well, there is. It leads to intoxication. It's not the liquor or the grass that's the harmful part. Sure, have a beer with lunch. Have a glass of wine now and then. You know, if you're in a place where it's legal, smoke your joint. That's fine, but not to intoxication. How many of us know our limit? By the time you realized you had too much, you've had too much for a little bit now. Remember, we're always in the past tense. So rather than run the risk of intoxication, we should probably head that off and just not do it. But there are other things we can get intoxicated on. Passion. We become so intoxicated by the things we're passionate about. Dispassion is not apathy. The Buddha was big on dispassion. But that doesn't mean being apathetic about things. You can still feel driven, feel motivated, feel desires. Desires are normal. Our obsessions about things are not normal. Obsessive compulsive behavior is not, well, maybe it is now. Who knows? But it shouldn't be. It's not sane. It leads to suffering. And things that intoxicate us may not be alcohol or drug related. Ideas intoxicate us just as much. Some people are intoxicated by music and art. Some people by fashion. Some people by food. We should be careful about what intoxicates us. And mainly we become intoxicated by our own I can't say that word. Okay. Our own male bovine exudant. We get intoxicated by the nonsense we tell ourselves. And then a lay disciple should not deal in poison. That's any kind of poison. As a Buddhist, I should probably never get a job in a tobacco shop, because that is harmful. And I'm promoting a harmful product to other people. Bad juju buona. Wrong livelihood for contemplatives. Now this is for, guys that wear dresses like me. Robes, kimonos. Reading marks on the limbs. That's like palmistry, palm reading. Probably shouldn't be doing that. Probably shouldn't be doing tarot cards either. Reading omens and signs, interpreting celestial events. Falling stars, comets, astrology. Oh, that just shot down an entire school of Buddhism right there. Interpreting dreams. Reading marks on the body, like bumps on the head. Reading marks on cloth gnawed by mice. Oh, okay, some fortune tellers used to make a living out of that. Offering fire oblations. Today, the fire ritual is a big deal in Buddhism, Japanese and Chinese and Indian. Oblations from a ladle, oblations of husks, rice powder, rice grains, ghee, and oil. Offering oblations from the mouth, offering blood sacrifices, making predictions based upon the fingertips, geomancy, laying demons in a cemetery. That's actually like exorcism. Placing spells on spirits, another form of exorcism. Reciting house protection charms, snake charming, snake handling, poison lore, scorpion lore, rat lore, bird lore, crow lore, fortune-telling based upon visions, giving protective charms, interpreting the calls of birds and animals, and the list goes on, even unto reading entrails. These are things a monk should never do. Why? Because I can read your palm right now. Everybody that's in the world, I can read your palms right now and tell you what your future is. Your future is uncertain. A contemplative should never try to tell the future. It never ends well. Why do you think there are two separate classifications for lay people and contemplatives? The Buddha made the point for a reason, because they have two different lifestyles. A lay person has to make a living, and there are proper ways to make a living. A contemplative does not have to make a living. They have to become enlightened. And the more a monk or an anagarika or a priest, temple priest, spends his time fostering, nurturing superstitious delusion, the further he becomes from enlightenment. What separates this one from enlightenment is one thought. Isn't somebody going to ask me what the thought is? Any one thought separates us from enlightenment. That's why the whole teaching of Hongaku, my lineage, came about. Enlightenment already exists. We just keep adding more defilements on top of it and disguise it very well. There are three classes of enlightenment, by the way. Original enlightenment, realized enlightenment, that is, it actually happens, and then non-enlightenment. Those are your three choices. Considering becoming a warrior, a soldier, be all that you can be, you might want to reconsider. When a warrior strives and exerts himself in battle, if others then strike him down and slay him, while he is striving and exerting himself in battle, then with the break of the body after death, he is reborn in the company of the gods, slain in battle. This is the old Valkyrie thing, where I have to die a hero so I can go to heaven. Well, that isn't the way it works. That's a wrong view. There are two destinations for a person with a wrong view: hell or the animal realm. Why is it a wrong view? Warriors hurt other living things. That's their job. What did I do there? Oh. Want to become an entertainer. When an actor on the stage in the midst of a festival makes people laugh and gives them delight with his imitations of reality, then upon the break of the body after death, he is reborn in the company of the laughing devas. People actually believed this 2,500 years ago. This again is a wrong view. There are two destinations for a person with a wrong view: hell or the animal realm. You get the same choice. Why are both of these wrong views? Because they both make the assumption that actions have no consequences. Okay. We need to constantly recall and think about our own virtue. We need to constantly be looking at how we're doing, grading ourselves. In ancient China, they used to actually publish books which had how many times I broke the precepts, how many good things did I do today, how many evil things did I do today. And they would actually keep track day by day by day by day by day. And in almost every case where merits, the good things that you did, outweighed the bad things that you did, the people that were keeping the record usually claimed that their lives were easier, they had fewer enemies, they were making more money, and they were just happier all the way around, living peacefully. And that was the purpose of the Five Precepts anyway, is to live happy and peacefully and exert a little bit of freedom over your desires. But if we can live in ease without the stress of knowing that we broke one of the precepts, that we don't have to give it up, or give something up to replace whatever it was we took, or explain whatever it was we did, or try to remember the last lie we told, our minds become less stressed. We can actually concentrate on important things. There are 4 kinds of individuals, according to the Buddha, in relationship to the Sila, and they are one who practices for his own benefit, but not for the benefit of others. One who practices for the benefit of others, but not for his own sake. The ones who practice neither for their own benefit, nor that of others, and the one who practices for his own benefit and that of others. This last one is called a bodhisattva. So how does that work? A person who practices for his own benefit, but not for that of others, means pretty basically he's following the letter of the law. The 5 suggestions, maybe we should call that, where he's not doing it, but he's not encouraging others to live by the precepts as well. One who practices for the benefit of others, but not for his own, is one who has taken the 5 precepts, but isn't practicing them, but he's letting other people know they should. Do as I say, not as I do. And then there's the one who practices neither for his own benefit nor the others, who thinks the whole thing's ridiculous and it doesn't really matter anyway. The one who practices for his own benefit and for that of the other not only practices but encourages others to practice and shows them how. Okay, and that's just what we just said. I was going to go further into that, but we are running out of time. Okay. And such an individual who practices for his own benefit and that of the others, that is the Bodhisattva Path. And that's in the Anguttara Nikaya 499, which is from one of the original books of Buddhism. That in theory doesn't really supposed to promote the Bodhisattva ideal at all, but there it is, right there. And we have the 5 precepts. We have 6-7 minutes left. Are there any questions? Please type them in. I sense someone busily typing now. I can feel it. I can hear it. It's my audio clairvoyance, or whatever it's called. Clairaudio? Whatever it's called. Oh, 2 people are writing. Uh-oh. Oh, there it is. Is there a balance where benefit for yourself is the benefit of others simultaneously? Yes, there is. And that is when you're practicing because you think it's a good idea and that you realize that it's helping you, and at the same time you're benefiting others, deliberately benefiting others. For instance, if I were walking down the street, this is a poor example, but if I were walking down the street and I found a $100 bill on the ground, there was nobody there to claim it, I picked it up and then gave it to a charity. That's be simultaneously helping yourself and others. By not lying, the opposite of that would be telling the truth. So if I gave somebody a talk that benefited them and made them feel better and helped them through a problem, then I'm benefiting myself and others at the same time. And that's again, the Bodhisattva Path tends to take the extreme that I should be helping others but not myself, and that's simply ludicrous. If I'm not coming to higher and higher realizations, how can I help others get to higher and higher realizations? If I'm starving because I'm giving all my food away, what good am I when I'm physically ill? So we have to look out for ourselves as well as others. We are our own first priority. And once we've taken care of ourselves, then it's a lot easier to help others. Okay, I am Mary Kinsman, right? I am unclear about how being an entertainer is wrong thinking. Does it have something to do with creating delusions about reality? Where can you draw the line between something that simply causes joy by amusing people? Yeah, the entertainer that the Buddha was talking about was not just somebody telling jokes. He's talking about creating illusions and delusions and pretending that that's the way it's supposed to be. Like in contemporary society, we have actors that love to play, or writers or directors, whoever, that promote the idea, knowingly promote the idea that the anti-hero is somebody to be praised and honored, and the anti-hero is a bad guy. We as a society really like a good villain. Trouble is, we as the audience and the actor as an actor very often miss the point that it's just a show. I know people that get very, very angry at their TV set when something happens that they find distasteful, a murder or some sort of violent action. And this is what is wrong with entertainment when it promotes an idea that is socially or damaging to an individual, because the brain collects data. That's all it does. It does not know the difference between a TV show or a movie as an illusion, or if it is witnessing an event in real time, real life. The brain by itself cannot tell the difference. And this sticks in our kamma. The mind can. The mind can make the distinction. If the actor or the audience can determine from the very beginning that, okay, this isn't real, this is just a show, people really aren't getting hurt, the critter from the Black Lagoon is not really a monster, and he didn't snatch the bathing beauty and kill all those people, it's just a movie, then we're probably fine. But if an entertainer is promoting the idea that violence is the way to go, then I think there's a problem. And that's what the Buddha was alluding to, was the promotion of delusion over sanity. Did that answer your question? I'm looking. Thank you. Okay, it is 9 p.m. If there are no more questions, we can all go to bed.